Hello, everyone, and welcome to Psychology 4440, the psychology of drugs and behavior. And this video is not meant to introduce any new course content. This is just a welcome video where I'll describe the course, talk about its content, talk about expectations of the course, the schedule for the course, what you'll need to do well. So this is, again, just a welcome video. If you're watching this, you obviously have access to Canvas, so you've got that part handled. So what is this course about? Well, of course, it's about drugs. It's about drugs' effects on behavior and even larger scale effects like those on society. And if we're going to understand how drugs work, we, of course, need to understand how they affect things at a very small scale, at a level of neurons, which are individual brain cells. Because drugs are chemicals. Every single drug out there is a chemical. And you can put various labels or categories on these things, but the fact is they are all chemicals. They are all, at least psychoactive drugs, they all interact with the brain. They interact with neurons. And so we're going to spend some time learning about neurons. How do neurons process information in the brain? And once we understand that, it'll make a lot more sense when it comes to how these chemicals can have such an impact on our psychological experience. Of course, we are individuals. Every individual has a brain composed of billions of neurons. So we can't just stop at understanding what drugs do to neurons, because that wouldn't explain a lot of the phenomena that we care about. We care about what drugs do to the individual. What do they do to your psychological experience, how you feel, whether you remember things or not, how alert you are, whether you feel pain or not. So these are all psychological experiences that we all have some familiarity with, and drugs can affect any of these. So once we understand neurons, we'll start to understand how this physiological change induced by a drug affects the individual's both experience and their behavior, so sort of their internal workings and the external ones. We'll also talk about society at large. So how have drugs affected society? And we'll see that even in ancient times, there was a number of different drugs that were used, mainly for religious purposes, but also for things like diminishing pain. And so society has interacted with drugs for thousands of years. And fairly recently in our history, we started to regulate drugs. We also are better able to understand how drugs work because our understanding of the body and the brain have improved. So as a society, we understand more than we did before when it comes to how drugs have their effects. But society can, at times, try to regulate them to make them legal or illegal. And we can look at what drugs have been used for by society, not just in terms of their legality, but which drugs have been in use, what are trends in usage. And we'll also look at history. It's hard to talk about society without talking a little bit about the history of society and the history of drugs. So as I've already mentioned, ancient cultures have used a number of different drugs. We have far more available to us now. But even thousands of years ago, several drugs were known and were used. And so we're going to get a little bit of that history. So how have drugs shaped our society over time? And how they shape our perceptions over time. And we may think of our current view as a culture, especially here in the US, that our current view is the way it's always been. But the American mindset when it comes to psychoactive drugs has changed a lot, especially in the last 100 years or so. So it is not a constant in terms of society's approach to drugs and drug use. So what are we going to do? Well, of course, this is a course about drugs. There are lots of different kinds, and so we're going to spend time on the different varieties of drugs. So we're going to understand how they work, how they affect neurons, what effects they have on the body and the mind, how society has responded to these drugs. And so we'll look at drugs sort of one at a time, or at least one category at a time. Some of the most famous and most popular drugs we'll spend even more time on. We'll have a whole week on alcohol, a whole week on cannabis, a whole week on tobacco or nicotine. We'll also, toward the end of the course, look at prevention and treatment. So how do we prevent substance abuse? How do we prevent dependence on a substance? And there are different ways of approaching that. Some aim to keep the person from using drugs in the first place. Some aim to keep drug use within moderation, uh, if the person is already using it. And then so how do we prevent drug use? How do we also treat drug use, drug abuse, once it occurs? If someone is dependent on a substance, what do we do about that? And bigger picture, we're interested in developing those critical thinking skills. So this course will take a fairly even-handed approach to drugs and the history of drugs. So when you use the term drug use, uh, there's a very negative connotation that pops to mind for a lot of people. And again, drugs are just chemicals. So they have no moral value. Now, some of them have positive effects, some have negative effects, some drugs have both of those. It's a mixed bag. And we're not going to gloss over any of that. We'll cover both the positives and the negatives of drug use on the individual and on society. Uh, Further along in the course, you'll also get some practice crafting an argument. We'll have class discussions where there's a controversial topic. You'll have to evaluate the question. It's not something you can just look up. It's something you have to think critically about. And there is no easy answer. You'll also write a paper where you make an argument about a drug-related issue. And these are controversial issues. So you'll need some of those critical thinking skills to present an argument and support your claim. Prerequisites for this course. Technically, there are none. I would recommend that you've had Psychology 1000, but it's not, strictly speaking, required. Uh, if you're concerned about your background, about the courses you've taken, and whether you're prepared for this course, feel free to send me an email. I'll talk about that in a second. But there really are no prerequisites that I absolutely require. Okay, first, I'm going to introduce myself. So I am Dr. Damon Tomlin. I'm here in the psychology department at UCCS. This is my email address, dtomlin@uccs.edu. Please do use that as the primary means of communicating with me. This is an online course. Email is the best way to get in touch with me. And I'm fairly prompt about responding. Give me 24 hours. I'm usually much faster than that, but please do give me 24 hours. Don't send a chain of emails within that period. That'll just give me more to sort through. But that's my email address if you need to get in touch with me. This is my office number. It is on the 4th floor of Columbine. So I don't have regular office hours. They're not scheduled. This is an online course, so they are by appointment. But just send me an email requesting a meeting if you want to meet in person. Of course, if whatever it is that you're interested in or want to know can be handled over email, we can do that too. But if you would like an in-person meeting, we can schedule a meeting time. Just send me an email with some times that work for you, what you'd like to talk about, and I'll get back to you, and hopefully your suggested time will work, or we'll just work on a schedule that makes sense for both of us. Okay, the structure of this course. So first, it is an entirely online course. This is not a hybrid course. It is entirely online. You will never have to do anything on campus to satisfy the requirements or access the materials for this course. It is offered through Canvas. So if you're watching this video, you obviously have access to Canvas. So everything that you need will be offered through Canvas. In terms of scheduling, the course is what we call asynchronous. We do not have set meeting times. There's no particular time or day on which you need to log into the course for lecture. I record lectures just like I'm recording this video, and so you can watch those on your schedule. So bear in mind that it is very important to keep up with course content. So the schedule is up to you to a large degree, but I would not recommend falling behind week by week in course content. Also, there will be certain weekly due dates. So every week we'll have different discussion questions. More on that in a minute. Those discussion questions will become available and go away on Sunday evenings. So bear that in mind. There is sort of a due date in that sense. But within that week, when you access content, when you respond to discussion, that is up to you. You'll notice if you look at the syllabus that the content is split up into weeks. And so for every week, there will be 2 lectures. And for every week, there will be accompanying reading. I do recommend doing the reading before you watch lecture. It'll help you be better prepared for absorbing the course content. So these are the weeks in which you should access this material and try to absorb it. Again, don't get behind. On the schedule, on the syllabus, you can see that there are due dates. So for example, for papers and exams, there are due dates. So the things will be due by 11:59 p.m. on a particular day. There will be 2 papers, 2 exams, more on that in a minute. But those are solid due dates. So when you take the exam, once it becomes available, within that week is up to you, but it does have a solid due date. So keep that in mind. Course materials. So first, there's a syllabus, very important. Please do read the syllabus. It is, of course, offered on Canvas. There's a link in your Canvas homepage for this course that says syllabus. Click on that. You can access it in PDF format. And it has a lot of important information. Some of it I'm covering here in this video, but it goes into more detail, how you satisfy course requirements, what the schedule is, that sort of thing. There's also a textbook that's required for this course. It is Drug, Society, and Human Behavior by Hart and Kassir. It is the 16th edition that we use. I know there's some copies of the 15th edition floating around. People have used those in the past. It's usually not a problem. One thing to keep in mind is the readings are assigned according to the 16th edition. The chapter numbers and what they cover is the same, so don't worry about it too much. But bear in mind there could be small differences. Just read the appropriate chapter for each week. Technology. This is an online course, so technology is important. You will need speakers or headphones. Most computers come with speakers. Sound quality might be a little better if you have headphones, but it's up to you. So you need to be able to hear me during lecture. Also, you'll need to be able to open Word documents and PDFs. So things like assignments, the syllabus, slides. I post all of these, and so you need to be able to access them. In terms of browser, evidence suggests that for Canvas, that Mozilla Firefox or Google Chrome are the best browsers to use. There aren't many reports of problems with other browsers, so it is up to you. But Firefox and Chrome seem to have the fewest, so bear that in mind. And then for exams, and there are 2 exams in this course, you will need the Respondus Lockdown browser. So this is a special browser that we use to secure your connection to the exam. You can't have other windows open, for example, and it allows you to access the exam. You won't be able to access it if you're not using Respondus Lockdown. So we'll get more to those details when the exams approach. It's not going to be for a while. But bear that in mind. You will need the Respondus Lockdown browser, which you can access by going to Help under Canvas. And be sure to use that link. If you just search for Google search a random link for the Respondus Lockdown browser, you'll probably end up using a link for some other institution. And the links are institution specific. So you need to go through UCCS to access the Respondus Lockdown browser. So the course is broken up into modules, and so the structure of the modules is consistent between modules. There will be a few things added here and there. Some will be a little longer, some will be shorter, but there is a lot of consistency, and so a module will always have an overview. So that will give you a description of the topic, as well as describing the learning objectives, what it is you should know by the time you complete the module. There's a task list, so doing the readings, watching the lectures, taking practice quizzes, which I'll get to in a minute. These things are all outlined in the task list. Again, there are assigned readings that are mentioned in the task list. I do recommend reading them before you watch a lecture. You'll be better able to absorb the material. Lectures are contained in each module in video format. So I record each lecture. It's a video. So it is a good idea to watch those lectures. And, again, to do the readings. There are things in the lectures that aren't necessarily in the textbook. So while the reading is necessary, it is not entirely sufficient to give you all the information you need. So be sure to watch the lectures too. And again, watch them in a timely fashion. Don't wait until the exam is almost upon us and then try to watch all those lectures at once, because it's too much content. You won't absorb it all. I also provide the slides for each lecture. So if you want to download those PDFs, print things out, make notes, that is up to you. But I do provide those slides so that you have sort of those raw materials. You're not dependent on going through the video every time to see what the slide says. Practice quizzes. So for every lecture, there is a practice quiz. And the practice quizzes are important. They're a good way to test your knowledge. So I do recommend them. I do not require them. You are not graded on them in the sense that you get some points toward your final grade. It is entirely up to you whether you take advantage of them or not. But evidence suggests those practice quizzes are useful. People who take the practice quizzes tend to do better on the exams. So again, up to you, does not count for a grade in any way, but they are there and available for your use, and I recommend using them. And then discussion. Every week there will be discussion. And so there will be questions posted, usually 2 to 3. And so at the beginning of the course, what you'll do is answer any one of those questions. So you can see the syllabus for some details about this process, but at the beginning, just pick a question, whichever one you think is the most interesting, respond to it. You should write a fairly thorough response. And especially if you're responding to someone else's post, which you're allowed to do. Don't just say nice post and call it a day. It needs to be a thorough, comprehensive response. You need to think about the question and add something to the discussion. So again, the syllabus has more details about that. When we move further into the course, I will actually break you into groups, and you will participate in group discussions. So as a group, you will pick the question you want to answer, discuss it amongst yourselves, and then post, again, a comprehensive response. And the reason we do this is that A, gets you interacting with your fellow students, and it presents alternate viewpoints. You're less likely to challenge yourself, to challenge your own viewpoint, if you're the only one working on the discussion post. But very often, a group will have mixed opinions about the topic, and so the idea is to synthesize those viewpoints and post something that reflects everyone's thinking on the topic. Okay, other information. So grading. So there are a number of things that contribute to your grade in this course. One is the midterm exam. It counts for 25% of your grade. Again, you will need the Respondus lockdown browser to take it. And that will become available during the week of the midterm. So you can't see it now, but it will be available later. And again, it's up to you when you take that exam, provided it's after it becomes available and it's by the due date on a Friday night. Final exam, also worth 25%. You will also need the Respondus lockdown browser. You will not need a webcam, by the way, for either of these exams. I do not use Respondus Monitor. You do not need a webcam, but you do need the Respondus lockdown browser to access the exam. The final exam is not cumulative, so it will just cover the material that wasn't covered by the midterm. So those are two exams in this course. You'll write a paper. This is before the midterm. And it's on an individual drug. And it will be an individual drug. I'll give you a list of potential topics that we haven't covered much in the course. So the really popular ones, the ones we spend a week on, those aren't available. But if you are interested in a topic on the list, or you have your own topic, if you come up with your own topic and it's not on the list, just check with me. If it's not covered extensively in the course, odds are I will let you write on that topic. And then toward the end of the course, you will have what I call an argument paper. And this is a paper in which I will present a controversial issue. It has two sides to it. You will pick a side and provide evidence for why your side is the correct one. You will make an argument as to why the other side isn't correct. You'll bring some evidence in. You'll do some research. So for both these papers, you'll need to do some independent research and find sources that inform you about the drug or support your position. And again, discussion is part of the course. It's an important part. You have to participate every week, at the beginning as an individual, later on in a group, and it's worth 10% of your grade. So that's important. So you will need to participate every week. You only need to respond to one question. You can't make up for missing a week by responding to multiple questions within the next week. It's graded on a week-by-week basis. A word briefly on Canvas. Because the discussions are sort of either or, you get to pick which ones you want to do, Canvas cannot appropriately handle that grading scheme. All it can do is take an average. So because it's an either or assignment, you will see a column for each discussion. And then you'll see another column that indicates your total completion of the discussion requirement, and I'll update that manually. But other than that, the Grade Center and Canvas should give you all the information you need. Accommodations. If you have an accommodation, please let me know as soon as possible. Whether it has to do with course materials or exams, please let me know so I can adjust course materials correspondingly. Okay, that will do it for this welcome video. I hope you're excited about this class. I'm excited to teach it. And again, be sure to read the syllabus because it contains a lot of very important information. And also, if you're seeing this video, then Module 1 will be up very soon if it's not already up. So be sure to check out Module 1 once it becomes available. And I will see you then.